Welcome everyone to a new game on the channel called Winds of Trade. Now I saw this game released yesterday on Steam, and this is a full release, not an early access title. So I decided to pick it up mainly because it follows along in the same type of vein as Industry Manager, which is a game I featured on the channel in the past. So it's a trading game, and as you can see on the screen now, you're going to be trading using ships. Now it has a lot of things going for it. And we'll take a look at the Steam page here in just a moment and briefly talk about some of the main facets of the game. But essentially, you're looking at manning different ships and the possibility of giving them orders and building your trade empire through the use of ships. So first, let's take a look at the menu. Menu options are very basic. Before you start up the game, you're greeted with a Unity style window that lets you choose the resolution of your screen and also some good, better, best type graphic options. And that's basically it before you get here to the main screen. And we've got our normal options of start a new game, continue a game, and then we come down to our settings, which we'll take a look at first. Sound effects and music volume. For the purposes of our playthrough, I'm going to have the music all the way down. And then the scaling of the graphical interface also is left at default, and the terrain detail I have maxed out. I will tell you that graphics are not the strong suit of this game. This game is much more about number crunching and spreadsheets. That is for sure. You'll be spending a lot of time looking at the prices of things and determining trade routes. So the graphics are not something that we're definitely going to focus on. You've got a few other graphics options here, such as bloom and depth of field, which I'm going to leave off because I don't particularly care for. And then the sound of a bell on different news events. We'll also see things like newspaper articles that will pop up from time to time to let us know what's going on in the world. Okay, color correction is still on default. Again, I've not really changed anything there other than maximizing the terrain detail. So you've got a language option and 3 options there. I'm going to go with English. You've got credits and then a Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame would be for your various victories, and I'm assuming the length of time it took you to get those victories and the victory conditions themselves. So for the time being, we don't have any of those. But before we get into the game itself, let's go over to the Steam page and take a look at some of the details of the game. Winds of Trade is a strategy game about running an ocean trading company in the 18th and 19th centuries. Building your trading empire will not be your only goal. Ruthless pirates, shady smugglers, wartime, and fierce competitors will make the way to the top long and hard road for you. So that gives you a basic idea of what we're looking at here. This is a simulation game, also simulating various aspects of sailing from pirates and trading and so forth. As we scroll down through and look at some of the basic ideas of the game, we're going to be on procedurally generated world, which means that every new save you create will create a new map with different islands and different cities and towns on those islands. You're looking for a realistic economic simulation, which means that the basic laws of supply and demand will apply here. And we need to pay attention to that if we're going to, of course, grow our company and build our trading empire. There's also aspects of smuggling here, which means that there are going to be some goods that will be illegal, and we can attempt to trade in these for a higher profit, but also take the risk of losing everything if we're caught. Okay, we're going to have AI opponents. It's a single player game. And from what I've seen, there are 3 other opponents, but we'll see if maybe that changes as we go through the playthrough. Okay, there are dynamic conditions which will affect the world economy. Things like certain cities or countries will go to war with each other, which will make some goods, such as the game calls them arms or military, will become much more important. So they'll be looking to purchase things like guns. So we'll have to pay attention to that. There's a contract system here. So if you want to work directly rather than trying to figure out a trade route for yourself, maybe you want to pick up a contract and provide certain materials for a certain price and lock that in on the front end. That is available. You have a turn-based battle system. This is how you will be attacked by pirates from time to time. And we'll see this whenever we start the playthrough. The difficulty level that you choose will determine how often you are attacked by pirates. With a more beginner, easy difficulty level will mean that they will attack more rarely. And then, of course, they will attack more often the more difficulty you have in the game. So it's a turn-based system, which means that each time you have the opportunity to either move or attack each time it's your turn. And from just the brief amount that I've played the game, just to get an idea, I was attacked by multiple pirates at one time, so it won't necessarily be a one-to-one ratio with your ship versus the pirates. You do have the opportunity to set up your own colonies, which means you have the opportunity to set up your own production chains and so forth. I've not gotten that far into the game, but I'm very interested to see how that works. You'll have access to a total of 8 different types of ships, from very small ships that can carry much less cargo but sail much faster, all the way up through much larger ships which don't go quite as fast but can carry massive amounts of cargo. All right, you have the option for automatic trade routes. This is something that you can decide if you're going to use the progression system and open this up as the game progresses, which I believe it means that once you own 3 ships, I believe it is, that you can start to assign captains to your ships and then assign them trade routes. For our purposes, we're going to open this up from the very beginning just so that we can see how it works. But you will have the ability to have multiple ships and then have them automated on the purposes of their routes. Okay, you'll also be able to improve your ship's stats by hiring captains and also purchasing upgrades. Captains will give you various bonuses, such as the ability to sail faster, or maybe to improve your ability to defend your ship. Also, if we look down a little bit further, there is a stock market in the game. So you'll be able to invest in companies and hopefully help those companies, once you've invested in them, to grow and make yourself even more money. All right, and then we also have a few items that they're looking to add in the future. They're looking to have the ability to add corruption to the game so that you could bribe governments and so forth. Also looking for the ability to take over your competitors' companies. Those of you who were with me through the Industry Manager series, that's not something I got into, but it was definitely part of the gameplay in that particular game. They're also looking to add different weather simulation in there. It'd be interesting to see how they go about doing that. And then, of course, they're also looking to add new goods and production chains in the future as well. I believe right now there's around 20 different goods that you can sell, from your raw materials all the way up through finished goods. All right, so with that in mind, the game right now is at $14.99. So for $15, you can have access to this title. And so without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the game. Now that we've had an opportunity to take a brief look at what the game is about and some of the concepts and ideas of the game, let's go ahead and get started in the game itself. All right, so I've changed the company name, and then let's take a look at the different difficulty levels. As we increase the difficulty, we'll see that the amount of money that you start with will decrease, and also the amount of and the probability of the pirate attacks will increase. So we start out on easy with $20,000 and the very rare opportunity of pirate attacks. And then as we increase through, you can see the money decreases quite rapidly, and also the frequency of attacks increases quite rapidly. Okay, for the purposes of our video, I'm just going to choose easy because I want to see how this thing works, and let's see what the fundamentals are of the game and see how fun it actually is to play. So company color, I am going to choose a blue color, and then for all features unlocked, I'm going to check this box because I want to have everything unlocked up front, such as the automated trading for our ships. That's something I'm very interested in because I'm not looking to necessarily micromanage everything from an empire perspective. I want to build an empire and definitely want to use that from the very beginning. And okay, let's click next there. We can name our first ship. I'm not terribly worried about that. The most important thing is which type of ship do we want. On the far right, we've got the galleon, which has the ability to carry by far the most cargo, but is also the slowest. Along with that comes the ability to carry a maximum of 24 cannons, which should be great for our self-defense when we are attacked. Then on the other end of the spectrum, you have a much lighter ship, which can carry much less cargo. It is much faster and can carry a lot fewer cannons. So with this option, we'd be looking to run from the pirates as much as possible and avoiding conflict. But then by choosing the galleon, we would be looking to use the self-defense option much more, and we'd be in a much better position to do so. And then, of course, you've got a ship that's sort of in the middle and doesn't do anything particularly great, but gives you a little bit better defense and a little bit better cargo than the fastest ship. Now, in my limited playing of the game so far, I've not seen the ability to carry large amounts of cargo as being a great thing so far. So I'm going to start out our first ship as the fastest ship. Now, again, it's not going to have near the cargo space, but we're going to choose this option just to get going. And, of course, we'll have the option as we are hopefully bringing in much more money. We'll have the option to purchase more and more ships to expand our empire. Now, our victory condition, if you're familiar with sandbox strategy type games, then you'll be familiar with these. There is the victory condition based on money. First company with $1 million of net worth wins. There's the time option, which is to look at after the game runs for 10 years. Then we'll see who has the highest net worth to be declared the winner. Conquest, which is to drive everyone else out of business. And then finally, the sandbox mode, which is what I'm going to choose because I'm interested in just simply enjoying the game with no particular end goal in mind other than growing our empire. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. Now that we're in game, I want to give you a brief idea at some of the basic game mechanics before we actually get started in future videos with the gameplay and hopefully building our empire. We'll start with the bottom left-hand corner, which you can see is a mini map and also a directional heading. In the bottom right-hand corner, we've got several options, which is to see any idle ships that we have, meaning that they're not trading or on the way to or from a trade at the current time. Any loans and investments we might have. Financial information, any notifications as they pop up, which would include things like a ship of ours that has reached a particular port, something of that nature. Then we've got newspaper articles that we can see that will pop up on the screen from time to time. The contract office, where we could pick up various contracts for different goods if we choose to go that route. Victory conditions, which of course for us, we're on sandbox mode, so we're not going to be particularly worried about that. We've got stats and information about our competition, which if we come in here, you can see we've got net worth, cash, trade offices, ships, and again, colonies, different amounts of information that we can see about our competitors. You also notice here that we have 3 competitors as well as ourselves that will be shown here on the graph throughout the game. Then we can have a list of our ships, which will give us the ability to not only see how many ships we have, but if they've been in any attacks and maybe need to be repaired, how much cargo they have, their amount of upkeep, their defense, and then also where they might be at any particular time on the map. And we'll have the ability to click on them here and they'll be selected on the map. So now we've selected our first ship and some information appears on the screen about that. You can see right now we don't have a captain. We would need to supply a captain if we wanted to assign an automatic trade route. Now, the way the trade routes work in this game, again, we'll get into this more in future videos, but you have the ability to add various types of actions so that you can make these trade routes much more complex if you so desire. And we'll plan on doing that pretty quickly into the game as soon as we identify a trade route that we want to get started with. But for now, we have no captain. If we decided we wanted to hire one, we could click on the assign and say that we don't have any. This would also open up the tavern screen in the city which we're located right now. And you can see right now there is no one here that is looking to be hired. Okay, so that gets us some basic information that's going on the screen at any given time. We'll also be spending a lot of time manipulating the passage of time and spending a lot of time, particularly until we get into automatic trading, we'll spend a lot of time on pause because we don't want to lose out on the ability to get those trades, and also because our ships have upkeep, we'll want to minimize that as well. And then up in the top right, you can see the date and then how much money we have. Because we started on the easy difficulty, we currently have 20,000. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out a little bit with using the mouse wheel. You can zoom in and out, and then holding down the middle button, I can move the camera around. So I'm going to sort of get us into a top-down view here. And then you move, rather than moving the camera around using the left click on the mouse, which only highlights. As we do that here, we can highlight our ship. You use the W, A, S, and D keys to move around the map. So let's go ahead and scroll all the way out on the map. Let's deselect our ship so that we can get a better idea. So you can see here we are in the bottom right-hand portion of the map. We've got 3 islands on board, and you've got some different countries as well. The important thing for us here is to pay attention to, most pressingly, we're going to focus on just the island that we're currently at, because it's going to take a great deal of time to get between the islands, which means a great deal of cost. So particularly at the beginning of the game, we won't be dealing with these other islands. We'll be focused primarily on our home island. And again, you can see the boundaries between the different countries as well. Okay, so we're starting off here in Mathala. And then you can see what other opportunities we have for ports nearby. So our goal will be to increase the number of ports that we open up. And of course, will give us more and more trade options. So let's go ahead and start out by zooming in on our home city here. If we hover over it, you can see the population information as well as our relationship and also what they currently are producing. So if I left click on the city itself, you can see what they have in the warehouse is rum and sugar. So that gives you an idea of what they're working on in this particular city. We can go into the tavern screen, which we just looked at moments ago, and there's nobody looking to be hired at this point. This is where we would hire captains, which will give our ships various bonuses. You can see the industries that are located here. Right now, anything that you see with a sort of a pinkish red background means that those are not currently working, because most likely they don't have the raw materials needed. So for example, the textile mill does not have any cotton, so it can't produce any fabric. Okay, but the sugar farm, which we saw on the previous screen, the sugar farm is up and working. So it has a white background because all it needs is labor to produce the sugar. Okay, and then we see some other things that are here that unfortunately cannot work because they simply don't have everything that is needed. So that's something we could keep in mind moving forward. Maybe we could help these guys out by supplying wood that would enable the paper mill to start working in order to produce paper. We also have a list of all of our resources down the left-hand side of the screen. There's also a shipyard where we have the ability to buy and sell ships. We can also repair our ships after any combat. Hopefully we're able to survive that combat and make it back to port and repair our ship. So here you can see the information about our particular ship as well as any upgrades. You can see here we already have the maximum amount, and then for $500 we can add another one. We're already maxed out, so that's not going to help us. Then you can see that we would have the ability for $1,500 to optimize our cargo hold, giving us greater capacity. Also, we could increase our ship's hull HPs by adding a copper sheathing to it for $2,000. For right now, we're not going to do those, but let's take a look and see if there are any ships that we could purchase. You can see there are actually 3. Right now there is a medium ship and then a couple of larger ships that we could buy. And then it gives you various information about them. This particular one that we could buy looks like they would actually be building this one for us, and it would not come with any cannon, so we'd have to take that into account for additional cost. All right, also you see here that we do have a trade office in this particular city. If I come back out to the map and zoom out a little bit, this is the only trade office we currently have, and the way you can tell is because these other cities are sort of grayed out as opposed to the bold of the city where we are now, where we do have a trade office. So we have the ability to purchase trade offices in these different areas. And in fact, we're going to do that to start out with. Now, we have a couple of cities nearby, but it does look like this is probably our best bet for our closest city. So we're going to click on it. And then it says open trade office. Let's go ahead and do that. It's going to cost us $1,500. All right, so now we've opened up a trade office there, and you can see the name is now more in bold as opposed to being grayed out. All right, with that in mind, let's go ahead and check on the prices of goods now that we have two offices open. Let's click on the goods prices, and I'll tell you what, let's back out just for a second. We've got rum and sugar that are being made here, and then opium, coffee, iron, and several things, but also rum and sugar being made here. So let's go ahead and start out by seeing if we can learn any information on rum or sugar from the first two. Now, you see here we've selected rum, and we've got some cities in red. And the red means that the resource is illegal in that city, so we would have to smuggle that in if we were going to trade there. Also, you notice that you have sort of the grayed out font of the cities where we don't have the ability to trade. So we've got our two cities where we do have trade offices. And if we look here, we can, in our home city, we can buy rum for $2.85, but we're not sure how much we can sell it for in Russo because, well, we haven't been there yet. We don't have any rumors, no source of information. So we'll have to travel over there before we can find that information out. Okay, let's look for sugar and see what we've got here. We know we can buy it for $36 in our home city, but again, no information. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to highlight our ship by clicking on it, and then I'm going to right click over near the next city that we want to visit, and then I'm going to take this off pause and actually put it on fast forward. You can see it didn't take very long for us to reach. You could probably hear the bell sounding in the background. So now we've reached our new city, and now we have updated prices. So let's come back in, take a look at rum. We have our two cities. We can buy it for $2.88 and sell it for $2.27 between these two cities. Well, that's not going to do us any good. All right, what if we go the other way? What if we purchase it here in Russo for $2.50? We could sell it back in Mathala for $2.62. Now that seems like a better deal. And for now, we're not going to worry too terribly much about optimizing things and making sure that we're making the absolute most because we've only got a couple of cities opened up and we're just getting started. So for our purposes, it looks like this would be our best deal. Now, the other thing we have to look at before we decide that this is what we want to do is the quantity available. It may be that this would be a good trade route for us, which in this case is going to make us about $12 per, but do we have any quantities available? And it turns out that yes, we do. It looks like there's 10 available where we are now. So we're going to open up there, and rum, there's 10 available. Let's go ahead and we'll just say buy the max. Okay, and for demonstration purposes, now we're going to run right back over to the city where we were. Let's go ahead and fast forward that. Now we are back. We've made sure to pause the game. And we're going to click on our city. And you can see the price here. And go ahead and sell that. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how the trading system works in the game. And that's what we'll be exploring as we attempt to expand our trading empire in future videos. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned for more Winds of Trade.